Really live.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Two Knicks Chicks. I'm your girl, Lady, and the Chef, joined by my co-host today.
Evil 21, what's up?
Uh, it's still adjusting to the fact that we're in off season for the Knicks, but the good news is the WNBA is back in action. Our New York Liberty are back in action. They're actually back tonight to get a little redemption from preseason until now against the Chicago Sky. Chicago Sky obliterated the New York Liberty in their first preseason game of this season. I believe the score was like 53 to, I don't remember, one something, which was quite embarrassing. So tonight's going to be a great game. We'll be checking out that game to see how the New York Liberty play, considering they're 4-0 right now. Um, and they're still in their redemption phase, and they are doing the behind the scenes documentary that they were doing last year. So I like that docu style that they're doing this year for the New York Liberty. But we're here to talk about the New York Knicks.
Our
It's,
beloved Knicks.
yeah, it's our part two guide of the off season. Today we're getting into trade targets that the Knicks can possibly go after. This is not a complete list of everyone that we're going to talk about. Some players we don't have an actual slide or visual for those of you that are watching, whether live or in the replay. But we're just throwing out names of potential players that the Knicks can possibly go after in this off season that can boost the roster in itself. So, I mean, why not get to it? I guess I could keep us there unless it's in a way I'll remove us. Let me see. Mm, I'll see which way I like it better, but yeah. So yeah, like I said, going into the next year, see, I don't like this positioning.
Yeah, leave on the side. Either off.
Um, yeah, so we talked about this and kind of touched on it in the last episode where we talked about what the Knicks need to do. Excuse me, rather, who's staying, who's going, for this current roster, who's on the team right now. Um, I think the biggest thing is figuring out who does this Knicks team need to add, and we both agreed that this team is missing at least two guys, possibly three, that can help upgrade this roster into the direction that they're trying to go for next year, right? So I do think that the Knicks need to do some housekeeping for this roster. And that's pretty much what we're going to go over. Current Knicks players and their contracts, who stays, who has to go, which positions need upgrading, and potential trades throughout the off season that the Knicks could possibly pick up. One of the two main guys, the other guy I'm missing is Alex Burke, who I'm very confident that Alex Burke is not going to return. He did sign to um, Clutch Sports Media, so they signed him. Looks like Alex Burke will probably go to maybe Los Angeles Lakers or another team. I don't see him staying here with the Knicks. Honestly, I don't see him having a fit here with the Knicks. But currently, Mitchell Robinson's making over 14 million, and then you have Bojan Bogdanovic making over 19 million, respectively, on their contracts. I think that the Knicks can try to maneuver Mitchell Robinson. We already know about Bojan because of his contract. It holds weight, who he is as a player. They can utilize that. But we got on Mitch. We were saying because him being so injury prone, that he can be a player that the Knicks may try to package off and deal off. As much as the Mitch Hive may not want to hear that, it's the truth.
The
It's
bitch
a
out.
possibility that they may try to package Mitchell Robinson off. And if you think about it in the long run, it may be to an advantage to bring in a better, more offensive minded center to go along with Isaiah Hartenstein if the Knicks are able to sign him. But what I was thinking of is, do you think that if the Knicks are not able to sign Hartenstein, that they keep Mitch and then try to bring someone else in? What are your thoughts on that?
That's definitely a possibility. Mitch is one of the longest tenured players with the Knicks. Um, and Tibbs is all about, as we know, as fans, Tibbs is all about the trust, and um, he sees the upsides, to having Mitch on the roster. Yeah, he's injured. Although he's injury prone, and we all see that, but it's just something, you know. Tibbs has this thing because we saw it, how he was with Grimes, and to just quickly, although those guys were developmental players, but it's just as a coach, again, he sees a lot of upsides, but there are a lot of, suitors out there that can do what Mitch does and more as a player. Now, Hartenstein may be commanding too much. So they may just, go the Mitch route and sign a backup for him. Um, So that's my thought, just thinking that they may just, who knows, potentially part ways with Hartenstein and keep Mitch and go to, and get a backup for him. Um that's my thinking.
Yeah, I think the only thing when it comes to the bigs positioning is like who exactly is going to be available in the off season for the Knicks to try to grab. That's my only concern that lies there as far as the centers positions exactly. But I think you hit the nail on the head in the last episode. Like Mitch is such a defensive threat and presence in the paint more than Isaiah Hartenstein. But my biggest concern and issue with Mitchell Robinson is he stays hurt. So he only could give you but so many games in a regular season. And I don't know why, but people overlook that.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
look, they're so focused on, well, Mitch, what he does when he's on the floor. Yeah, we know what he does when he's on the floor. But I think that people overlook the fact that he's not able to give you damn near a full season. He's not able to stay healthy enough a regular season. And this has been the number one main issue with Mitch. I could get past the fact that Mitch is not really as much of an offensive um, center, big position. Okay, I can move past that, but can you give me at least 60, 65 games in a season? And that's the issue with Mitchell Robinson is that he can't give you enough games in a regular season. So, it just sucks because you need him and you can't really get enough games for him throughout the regular season. So, I don't know. I think that whole Mitchell Robinson, Isaiah Hartenstein is something that I believe we're both going to be closely watching to see what the Knicks do. As far as if they do sign Isaiah Hartenstein, and then you wonder too, like, would another team even want Mitchell Robinson? Because I think that teams will want him, but I think that there would be this hesitation as far as um, him being very injury prone.
Yeah, for sure. And me, if they go that route and keep Mitch, of course they would definitely have to, find like a suitor in place of iHeart. And there's guys out there. I mean, I like even what's it, Jonas Valanciunas from the Pelicans.
Mm-hmm.
Andre Drummond, from the Bulls. These are guys that that they could possibly, take a look at. Um, they've given more games than Mitch, and offensively and defensively. Um, so that's just something, if iHeart, that's just a possibility, is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that's still up in the air. If Isaiah
Yeah.
Hartenstein is not being greedy and he takes what the Knicks go offer him, which I believe the Knicks will try to offer him as much as they can, which is probably not the 17 that he wants, or closer to 18, 19. But I think it also boils down to, okay, will he take what the Knicks are offering, and then he's taking it, but also because he wants to be in New York, you know? So I think it boils down to a little bit of both. But like I said, we'll see. Um, I think those two positions are definitely two that we definitely have to pay attention closely to see what happens to the two. And then, yeah, we already brought up Alex Burke. I know you mentioned OG.
Oh yeah, uh, OG's definitely gonna test the free agency, and rightfully so. If he can get more, it's a player's market. It's a buyer's market. If somebody's willing to buy that, yeah, he fits seamlessly in New York. Um, but he's gonna test that free agency and see what kind of hits he get out there, bites, and hey, may the best team win, because
Yeah,
he's
it's a
definitely
business.
yeah, it's a business. At the end of the day, he's definitely declining the offer from the Knicks, and he's gonna test the free agency market. Do we it's a shame we may not get to see him, come next season, and what he could potentially, if healthy, what he's able to do. But and he's injury prone, but just the impact that in that short time that he made was a boost, for the roster and for the team itself. We'll never at this point we don't know. It's up in the air, but he's definitely declined the offer, or he's going to decline the offer from the Knicks.
Um, does that change things for this Knicks roster if OG doesn't come back?
Yes and no, but there's guys out there, in my opinion, that can do what he does. I mean, yeah, they are somewhat a little older, but they're versatile, just like he is. Can give us the points, the rebounds, can spread the floor, his floor spacing. He's he's just one of many. In other words, so it changes, yes and no, but Leon Rose, he's done a fantastic job, this past, season. I don't see, where that would hinder him from finding a suitable replacement. Um, so yes or no, but like I said, he's just one of many. There's quite a few guys that can, do what he does. DeRozan, although I did see, he wants to go back to he wants to sign with the Bulls. Same thing with Butler. He's definitely, signing with Miami. But there's quite a few guys out there. So yeah, it will impact, but at the same time, there's like I said, other guys that can possibly, fill in that gap. Um, you know,
I think with OG, it's the Knicks are looking at it like we can go. They're looking at it from a 50-50 standpoint, because it's like you can sign him and bring him back, but then if you bring him back, it's how many games can OG play for this team healthy? How long? How many games can he be healthy long enough for him to play with this team? Because to me, if OG's not able to give the Knicks at least 60 games, 60, 65 games in a regular season, then the Knicks are going to look quite silly giving him such a high paying contract for a guy who is always having issues health wise.
yeah,
Like we already deal with this with Mitchell Robinson. I don't think you need to bring another guy on the floor, on the team, excuse me, that's going to give you issues health wise. And I think that that's the thing with the Knicks. Like to some degree, the Knicks can possibly dodge a bullet if they don't decide to bring OG back. As much as I like him here on this team and he fits on this team, I think that that's something that, um, I'm sure the Knicks front office is considering, is the fact that OG can be very injury prone. But I
Yeah.
think that at the same time, this Knicks front office knew that when they even looked at Toronto and was making a deal to trade to bring him here. So I don't know. I just think it's like that issue of you you you're risking with certain guys, and OG's one of those guys where, like you just said, you can bring in somebody else who can damn near give you the same thing. You know, one of the guys who I put up on the slide was D'Angelo Russell, as a possible backup point guard to Jalen Brunson. And a backup point guard is something that the Knicks definitely have to acquire this offseason. I don't think Jalen Brunson should have to bring the ball up every time. And I also don't think that Jalen Brunson should only be able to get like a 2 minute rest because Tibbs has to hurry up and rush him back in because there's no solid backup point guard who can facilitate, orchestrate the offense, and give you scoring at the same time. And right now, we don't really have that because it's a combination of Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, Burks, whenever he was in, Dante's Vincenzo having to bring the ball up. And the Knicks need a solid backup point guard who could bring up the ball. Um, yeah, his this past season he was averaging 18 points per game, 3 rebounds per game, a little over 6 assists per game. Um, Possible salary range 18 to 20 million with a 3-year deal. One thing that he has is his versatility. So he can be a point guard and a shooting guard, which is nice. We know he could score and shoot the ball. He'll be a valuable asset. He's been to the postseason. He has that experience there. Your thoughts on D'Lo?
Um. Well, definitely. He can. Like to say, he can play. He's a two-way. Um. He has the experience. He's not when we're talking size. His height. Like you said, is an issue but for a guard, 6'3", is average. For a guard. But he's been healthy this year for the most part. Played in what, like 70 something games.
Mhm.
He did. He's decent scorer. Um, he he's another one that could attack the paint. Um, Nice outside shot. I think that he would be a nice addition to come in after Brunson. Um, Yeah, just like you said, his versatility as you just as both the point and the shooting guard. Um, I would like to see what he can do and just his like over here for the Knicks.
Yeah, I would take a look at him if I was the front office, the Knicks front office. He is a playmaker. It would provide relief for Brunson, at least in that realm, and provide some offense. If they did go after D'Lo, um, a sign and trade deal would involve Bojan Bogdanovic and some draft picks um, to pretty much get him for them to be able to get him on the team. Again, there goes Bojan, as we pointed to in the initials, the second slide. He would be that player that would be up in a package deal for certain guys who we'll be talking about tonight. But yeah, I mean, he's proven himself as a scorer and a facilitator. I think that he would be a fit here um, on this Knicks team. So I don't know. I think that they should possibly look at him, and we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. But he's one of the guys that I saw that he's a potential. I mean, we can't overlook anybody. You never know. And the Knicks need a backup point guard.
Yeah, the upside, he's a decent assist. I mean, he hasn't really played a full season, you know, for a few years. So that's like the downside with him. So seems like that's more uh injury, related. But hey, just overall, just like but the upside again, the versatility, dishing the ball, um, low turnover. So, we'll see.
Exactly. Miles Bridges, he's another one who I think the Knicks could possibly look at. Of course, as long as he keep his legal woes out of it, I think that he'll be okay. But his 2023-24 season stats, he was at 21 points per game, 7 rebounds per game, a little over 3 assists per game, close to 1 steal, 1 block per game. Possible salary range for next year will be between 14 and 18 million. Another one with a 3-year deal. Um, I like Miles because his defensive potential to play under Tibbs. He can fall in line under Tibbs' defensive system that he's big on, which I think everybody needs to get checked on the defensive end for the Knicks and step it up for next season. He's still young. He's still in his prime at 26 years old with room to grow. He's a player that I definitely see that I don't know why. And I've watched him when we played him in the past against Charlotte in the past, and he seems to, have his way and
Yeah,
do what he does against the Knicks.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
but he can score efficiently. He can run the floor. He'll be able to run and be a possible, you know, guy right behind Julius Randle. And I know some of these guys are not as tall, so will make the Knicks still short, which I know was um, something that you pointed out was that the Knicks are not as tall as like a lot of other teams, right?
Yeah.
But um, yeah, I think they should look at Bridges. Your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. You're small forward, like you said, he's young, still got room to grow. Um, just his averaging, he's averaged 21 points. He's rebounds just about 7.5. Um, it's decent 3-point shooter. Phil, he can hit his free throws. Um, so we all know, that's our Achilles heel, those free throws.
Right.
Decent assist guy. Like you said, he's young. What is he, 20, 26, 25, 26?
26,
So
yeah.
he's a small forward, definitely. Even possibly, for OG, although I believe OG's coming back, of course he wants to test the waters, and rightfully so, he should. But that he'll definitely, be a nice addition. With the Knicks, like you said, when he played, he seemed to have his way. He can attack, he can hit the three.
Yeah.
Still young, so yeah,
And
like you
I
said,
think,
room for growth, and he's and room to grow.
yeah, and that's the key word. He can attack. And those are the kind of players the Knicks need more of. So I think the Knicks should look at him. Honestly, I think that he's one that don't let him slip by you. He can potentially come to this team. You need guys who are a lot more aggressive. So Spider, Donovan Mitchell, who we know he oh so badly wants to play here on this New York Knicks team. He says he's happy being in Cleveland, but I think he's just saying that for like media purposes so that he doesn't come out and seem like he's complaining. His 23-24 stats, he was averaging a little over 26 points per game. He was at 5 rebounds per game, 6 assists per game, a little over almost 2 steals per game. Possible salary range for next year is at 34 to 35 million. Donovan's not as tall, so he's a little taller than Jalen, which they say Jalen stands at 6'2". That's still near neither here or there to be questioned with. But he's at 6'3" on the floor. I think with him on the floor with Brunson would make the backcourt quite small. And again, it goes back to what you was alluding to. This Knicks team is already short and they lack the length, the height against a lot of teams in the league. Um, the other thing that you and I were having a whole debate about was I was basically saying initially that Donovan Mitchell could come off the bench, and you was like, "Oh no, 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 he is absolutely not going to want to come off that bench." But then you brought up a good point of you can have Dante DiVincenzo or Josh Hart coming off the bench, and Donovan Mitchell can start, which is a great point. I didn't even think of that initially. I think one of the things that I think about with Donovan Mitchell is that like Brunson, he needs the ball in his hands to be able to score. And he's also used to bringing up the ball. You think that would be an issue if he came to this Knicks team and him and Brunson are playing on the floor together?
Yes and no, but because he's like Brunson, he wants to win. Um, you know, he's definitely not coming off the bench. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if roles will be established, like this is Brunson's team. Is he willing to take a back seat? That's the only, the downside with that, amongst other things, as far as he's been injured, for the last few years. He hasn't really given, a full season,
Right.
since he hasn't even the most he's given was like not even, one season when he first came was 79 games. So he's kind of, somewhat injury prone himself. So is that a gamble we're willing to take? Another injured, player. The upside, what he's averaging, he's another one can attack the paint. He's a guard that can, decent rebounder for a guard, his size. Nice, decent assist guy. Field goals definitely, a little shy of like 47. Um, but again, now the downside is, A, is he willing to, take a, I don't want to say a back seat, but this is Brunson's team. Sometimes people ego, the players' egos, they get in the way. And if it's not for the betterment of the team, you know, how will they mesh and gel? Sometimes when you try to put plays like that together, it don't or it backfires.
Mm-hmm.
So you just wondering, well, how would they mesh and gel? Because we saw quite a few of them backcourt tandems, and they just don't work out for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
And again, his like you said, that their backcourt, just the size, is small. So that's the upside. His scoring could attack the paint. Give you assists, rebound. Now on the downside, injury prone. He's played what 55 games last season. But
Yeah.
rather this season that just passed. Um, and again, will they mesh and gel? Is he a Tibbs kind of guy? So that's another thing. So these are the things you gotta like, ponder before you, think about, bringing a guy like that in.
Yeah, and that's a good point you brought up about him being injury prone. He does suffer, at least one, possible two injuries a season, which is something that is concerning. I think also the other point that you brought up too was like, how would him and Brunson play together? Like, how would that work, considering that Donovan Mitchell would need to be in the starting lineup? So that is a good point. It's like, it's true. Sometimes when you try to pair like two really good players together, superstars or not, sometimes it doesn't always work out on teams for whatever reason. Sometimes it's not always necessarily the coach, which, speaking of, JB just got, as they like to use the word, dismissed. They don't like to
Yeah,
use the word fired or laid off, but the Cavaliers just let him go as the head
party
coach.
ways.
Yeah, because I'm sure they were expecting to get further along in the playoffs than they did. And, he's been there long enough and they haven't seen any progression. But yeah, I don't know. I do worry about that. Like, how would that work out with him and Brunson playing on the floor at the same time? And then you have Randall who needs the ball in his hand to score. So it's like, does the game offensively for the Knicks, would it slow down and become very much a half court game because you have three guys who have to go to work and score, or does it become a pretty quicker paced game as it was, because of who we have on the floor? So, I wouldn't want it to turn into like, pre-Brunson Randall a lot of times, because he was really the only one who could score. And the way he scores, it reminds you of like when we had Melo, and you got to like, you slow the game down with the way you have to score because it's a lot of ISO.
Yeah.
So it's just something that I do worry about if you bring in like a Donovan Mitchell to this team. But I don't think that Cleveland is going to give him up. But listen, you never know. The most craziest things happen in off season with trades and everything. So,
For sure.
we'll see. Bruce Brown, I know a lot of people are not really high on him. But he's an option out there. You know what I mean? Like when you eat a bag of potato chips, there's a couple of chips in the bag. You know what I mean? So we're not just talking about 2-3 guys here, or a handful of guys. His 23-24 stats, he was averaging 10.8 points per game, a little over 4 rebounds a game, close to 3 assists a game, and just about a steal per game. His possible salary range will be at $23 million. Pointed out here, he can play with both the Big Ragu and Josh Hart. It'll be a small lineup. I understand that. Again, I know a lot of these guys I have in these slides, they're not as tall. But if you look at the way Dante plays, Josh Hart plays, they play bigger than their actual height. They play taller than their actual height. These guys have hops. They can jump. They can guard other bigger guys. So in order for them to get Bruce, again, it involves moving Bogdanovich, expiring deal, and maybe a few second round picks. But, I think with him, he can add some defensive versatility, possible playmaking that the Knicks could use. And, I think him playing with a healthy OG, Julius Randle, Mitchell Robinson comes back, I think it could work out, possibly.
Yeah, I remember he wanted to come to the Knicks. He was like, I'm a Tibbs guy. So you know, I don't know if you remember when before I think like right after they
I
got
do.
yeah. So he's a Tibbs kind of guy. I think he would definitely, those hustle plays you would see from him, because he know what it takes to play for a coach like Tibbs. Definitely, come in, like you said, although the lineup is small, but he just, and he has championship experience under his belt. So
Mhm.
that's a plus for him. Um, he's definitely like an option for me. As a backup, for Brunson, I mean, I think it's worth to, for them exploring. Um, he knows, you know, what is required. Um, so yeah, I like his upside.
Yeah. And plus, I think that also, too, a lot of these guys that we're discussing tonight is these guys will help out to strengthen our bench.
Yeah,
There's no knock on who we have now, but I think that we do need a bit more housekeeping done bench wise also. Like we need that one, possible maybe two guys who, overall, but the Knicks bench can be stronger because a lot of times the bench got outscored, especially in the playoffs, second round specifically. But I think when you bring in certain guys, like you can't just look at the fact of like the lack of height, or a guy doesn't do this. I think sometimes it's like you got to look at players overall as a whole and say like between experience, the value and impact that they can make on the floor in whatever capacity that may be, it can make a difference on a team versus having, and again, this is not me knocking who we already have. Like Josh Hart does what he does in his own right, respectively. Dante DiVincenzo does what he does in his own right, respectively. But I don't think that them Deuce McBride, I don't think that that's enough. I think you need somebody else with some more like experience. And, to a degree, Dante DiVincenzo, okay, yeah, you could say he has experience, but he was also injured. So he didn't really get to play in those championship playoff games as much. Like he's getting the opportunity here with the Knicks. But I think you need guys who also can be playmakers coming off the bench as well. You know what I mean? And I just think that, we need guys who could strengthen up the team and do what they do in their own right. Like they're gonna play their role, but it's a strength, not necessarily, well, we just brought him here as a filler, you
Yeah.
know. So Buddy Hield, Buddy Hield is next on my list. He's someone who, listen, the way he was shooting those threes in round one, I mean, he didn't get all the minutes in the world, but listen, Nick Nurse, if you ask me, he should have been a little bit smarter and gave Buddy Hield some more minutes. His
Yeah.
2023-2024 stats, he's averaging 12 points per game, a little over 3 rebounds per game, 2.8 assists per game, close to a steal per game, and if you get a block, you're lucky. Possible salary range is between 17 and 23 million with a 3-year deal. But pretty much for Buddy Hield, he would bring elite shooting to this Knicks team. His scoring would help the Knicks out, especially from the 3-point line. His capabilities that he adds and his depth from the 3-point shooting. His career, I know he's at like 40% shooting from beyond the arc. And this past season, he was at like 38.6 for this season. But for me, the biggest thing that he can do is he can stretch the floor and create scoring opportunities that will complement alongside JB and Julius Randle. And the Knicks don't have that right now. Like, again, there's no knock on what Dante DiVincenzo does from the 3-point line, or Deuce McBride or Josh Hart when he's not hesitant or timid to shoot the three. But we need guys who's ready to knock that ball down. And I think that he can be another scoring option that could stretch the floor for this team and help them out. Your thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. He's a shooting guard. How confident is he bringing it up the ball? Because can he turn into that, that two-way? Yeah. Although his natural position is a shooting guard, but he'll definitely, he's up there in age, 31. He's not young, but just overall his averages, he's been pretty, healthy for the most part. Or, he did come to Philly late. And then, prior to that, he, at for the most part, excuse me, at Pacers. He had pretty solid seasons when he was there. I think he would definitely be a backup, somebody to come off that bench, like you said, that's gonna, remind you like, of a Deuce, just come in and just make that, that immediate impact. Definitely, um, it's like you said, solid shooter. Um, he'd be great coming off the bench for me personally. You're mute. Did you mute yourself?
Yeah, I had a train going by.
Oh,
I think that the Knicks should definitely look at Buddy. He's another option. And I think the key thing is that we're trying to strengthen up the bench. And the key thing is getting backups to a few of the positions here on this Knicks team, right? Because that's something that we're lacking here. But are you comfortable with the shooting that we got from Dante and Deuce McBride? Because Deuce, we both know that Deuce is going to get better. He's going to work on his shot.
Oh, for
And
sure.
then
Definitely over the
discuss how
summer.
Dante is streaky, but is that, in other words, are you comfortable with that, or you feel like, yes, a guy like Buddy Hield, who we're talking about, we can still utilize him?
Well, for Dante to come off the bench, yes. I mean, he gave it his all, when he came became a starter. But you gotta realize he's a bench guy. So to come off the bench, yes, I am very confident. Although, like I said, he gave it his all, when he was, thrown into the starter's position. But is he a natural starter? No. So a bench guy, yes. That just strengthens the bench. So yeah, once you get the somebody fill that role, against a stronger, more like shooting guard. Not that Dante is, but let's face it, he's a role play. He's not a starter, per se. Um, but coming off the bench, I'm definitely I'm high praise for him.
Yeah. Mikal Bridges,
Oh man.
another Villanova guy, that he can be a possible fourth Villanova Wildcat added to this Knicks team. His 23-24 season stats, he was at 19.6 points per game, a little over 4 rebounds per game, a little over 3 assists per game. He was averaging about a steal per game, and if you lucky, you get a block per game from him. Possible salary range 23.3 million. He is 6'6" with a 7'1" wingspan, which is needed. He hit 38.4% of his 3-point attempts over the last 4 seasons. To me, I think that he can benefit this team. And not just because he went to Villanova either, but we see what he can do with his shooting. I think the chemistry would already be there with him, Jalen Brunson, Josh Hart, whenever if they can be able to play together on the floor. And I think that he would add value because a lot of times there's inconsistencies shooting wise with outside shooting with Josh Hart, and sometimes Dante DiVincenzo as well, which tightens up things offensively for the Knicks. So I think that he would be suited as a possible fourth option for this Knicks team. Your thoughts?
Oh, for sure. Small forward. He does those little intangibles, like you say, he could spread the floor, spacing. So he's definitely similar to, an OG, kind of type player. Um, just his averages, he could give you a little shy 20 points. Um, this he's assists, rebounds, and his field goal percentages, shy of 44. He's 27, so he's right at his prime, but definitely has a lot more in the tank. Like you say, he's a Villanova guy, so you know, with those four guys just playing, I definitely feel like the sky's the limit. But is Brooklyn, I don't think Brooklyn's gonna part with him, but that's a whole nother story. But definitely he would be a nice addition, you know, for the Knicks. Decent shooter, can give you some instant offense. Defense is there. I mean, I would definitely, yeah, I'm high on him as well.
Yeah, and he also stays healthy, and he eats Chipotle
Yeah.
every day, which is trash.
Oh yeah.
I wish he would stop eating that because their food is horrible. But
If
you
it
know,
works.
right, exactly. He pretty much, he's able to stay healthy, and that's a key. Plus the scoring that he could bring to this next team, I think that it's for sure needed. So. But I agree with you. I don't think that Brooklyn is going to try to part ways with him. There's a few guys on this list too who I don't think teams, because right now I think Brooklyn is trying to work on bringing in guys who can play with Mikal and build a team around him. Because right now Brooklyn has a lot of like random players, and it hasn't been working. Um, Funny enough, when they play against the Knicks, the games are actually quite close, which is weird until the Knicks pull away. Um, but yeah, I think Mikal would be a nice addition where we can have some scoring if Randall needs to sit down and take a breather. You know, if OG's on, you need to sit down. You have somebody else who can give solid scoring on his team, and that's what we need. Guys who can score, and our main guys can actually sit down for a couple of minutes and actually take a rest.
Well, and you can definitely also use him in the place of OG. I mean, we're always talking about the possibles and the what ifs. See, he'll definitely, fit right in.
Yeah, indeed. We'll see what happens with that though. If Brooklyn decides to let him go. James Harden, he's another one. I know he's Mr. Ball Hog, right? But hear me out. 2024 season stats. He was at a little over 16 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 8.5 assists per game, a little over a steal a game, and if you're lucky, you got a block. Possible salary ranges between 25 and 30 million on a 2-year deal. But I think that you can't overlook the wealth of experience that he can bring, as well as the elite playmaking skills to this Knicks team, right? Even though he's had a somewhat decline in his scoring, he can create his own shots. Um, he passes the ball because he averages over 8 assists. He's at 8.5 assists per game. And his scoring is also versatile. You know, he can give you the 3-pointer. He knows how to draw fouls. So he can be a nice weapon next to Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle. Um, and I just think that his experience from the playoffs can be valuable to this Knicks team. Your thoughts on James Harden?
For sure. Everything you said. I mean, you know, he starts off, great, and then he's like a roller coaster. I like him,
Yeah,
but you know that's a drawback with him. He's like a roller coaster. He start off great, and then next thing he doesn't give it his all. Then he picks up, and we need somebody that's gonna be there for the whole 82 games, not pick and choose. But again, just what he can bring. But
right.
if he brings that every night, that's is it. Will you get that? Every game. So that's the upside with him. Yeah, I like his, for what he does, like you said, he's, assist guy, he doesn't mind, sharing the rock as far as with the assist. Yeah, his scoring fell off, but a decent 3-point shooter. But now will he overshoot? So, there's a upsides to him. Will he be that ball hog, and just want to just try to shoot the lights out, and so there's some upsides to him. I like him, but I'm just wondering, would that be the best fit, as far as because of those things. Yeah,
Yeah.
his experience, overrides a lot of that. But again, will we get, you know, if you start out great in the season, will that continue? You know, so that's my only upside with Harden.
Yeah, I agree. I do. That big question mark is, will he fit on the team? Will he fit under Tibbs' system? And then will he want to play in New York? Like we could talk about what he can do and what he brings, but would he be a fit here for this Knicks team? I think that still remains to be a big question mark, and how would he fit alongside the current roster and would that work out? So I agree with you. And that whole like up and down roller coaster with him is, I don't think that's something that we can afford to have. We need someone who's going to be reliable, consistent, and not up and down. So I don't know. Paul George, another Clipper player, his 23-24 stats. He was at 22.6 points per game, a little over 5 rebounds per game, 3.5 assists per game, a little over 1 steal per game, and if you're lucky, you got a block. Possible salary range was between 30 and 35 million on a 3-year deal. I think he'd be a pretty good, significant addition to the Knicks team for next year. His numbers also slightly declined. He's approaching, I think, 35. I think he's 34 now, so I think he's gonna be 35. If he's not already 35, I could be wrong.
Yeah, he's 34.
Okay, yeah. So he's going to be 35, but his impact on both ends of the court remains invaluable. This past season, he averaged over 22 points per game. He was given 5 rebounds, over 3 assists. And he was shooting at 41.3% from the three. But I think the Knicks can benefit from his perimeter defense. He is a defensive
Sure.
playing guy. And I think he'll fit alongside Brunson, Randall, and OG. And, I think he can help the Knicks become even more of a serious contender against those Bostons and those harder teams when we need to go to that next round, that Eastern Conference round, to get us there. So I think he's even though I know I think it's Philly that's interested in him. That's really
Yeah.
interested in PG. So, because they're trying to build around Maxey and Embiid, which Embiid was another big I know that a few people were talking about, but Philly's not going to give him up. But
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know if the Knicks or any team, it'd probably be a little hard for them to snatch him up because I think Philly's really trying to snatch him up. So I don't know. We'll see. But I think that he would be a good fit for this Knicks team.
Definitely. Yeah, just it's and now you talking about a walking bucket, then this is what you're gonna get. You know, forward, he's gonna give you, you know, definitely no less than 20, 25 a game.
Hmm.
Um, very awesome free throw shooter. You know, he's up in the 90% tile. So he's definitely he could hit his free throws, which again, we know where the Knicks, that was a struggle for them. Um, yeah, he could spread the floor as well. Your floor, good floor spacing. He's another one. He can attack. Decent rebounder, assist guy. Um, so that's definitely worth a mention. But I also read, not that earlier today, I think the Clippers is definitely trying to keep that core group together. But
Mm.
that's all talk. If the right price is thrown out there, you know, anything goes. But yeah, he's definitely, there's some injury, issues with him in prior, but this season he seemed to, was able to stay on the floor for the most part this season. Um, but the few he did, didn't do so well being on the floor. The prize like last 3 seasons, but just over just his scoring prowess, man, he's gonna give that to you, you know. But now at what cost? Who do we, do you is it is that of course of Randall and Mitch and some drafts, because they're not gonna just have Paul come without the Knicks giving up another franchise player. So now you gotta pick your poison. Is it him or at the expense of Randall and Mitch and so forth? Like these are things that you gotta weigh. But if you could get them alongside, that'd be great.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I think it'll be kind of hard for the Knicks to snatch him up because, like you said, like with the way the salaries and you know his salary is very high. And then with Randall and Brunson due for their payday coming up, it's going to be kind of tough. But I think that he would be a good wing player for the Knicks. I
Yeah,
don't
for
know.
sure.
DeMar DeRozan, there was a lot of talk about him at one point when we was looking for the Knicks were trying to acquire DeJounte Murray. DeMar DeRozan came up in the talk about the Knicks possibly acquiring him. And I know there's some Knicks fans who are kind of like not really high on him just because his age. But I digress because I feel like with his 23-24 stats, averaging 24 points per game, over 4 rebounds per game, a little over 5 assists per game, a little over a steal per game and a block if you're lucky. Yeah, his salary range is at 25 to 28 million on a 3-year deal. But despite his age, like Paul George being up there, he still missed the mid range. And I think he could diversify the Knicks' offensive options, right? And then he can also be a veteran leader who can positively impact this Knicks team as well, providing mentorship and that winning mentality that the Knicks need. But I think that he'll be a nice addition playing under Tom Thibodeau. Now, in order for the Knicks to get DeMar, they would have to move Mitchell Robinson or Bogdanovich contract and possibly a 24-25 pick in the draft next year. Your thoughts on DeMar?
Oh, for sure. I was, when I remember when they was talking about when DeJounte, I was, and DeRozan he was throwing at that. My pet peeve was but his age, but just as far, he's like a PG, a walking bucket. His veteran leadership. He's 34. Yeah, he's not young. But what he can do as far as just what he can bring to the Knicks scoring wise and just that floor spacing. Um, he could the mid range, the three. So he's very versatile in that regard. Um, I you know I he's definitely worth taking a look at. He's been healthy for the most part for the last 3 seasons.
Mm,
Um, he again, I have high praise for him. Yeah, he's 34, but also he's able to give you so much, just being on that floor.
right.
So he can score, he can attack. So he has a lot, to offer as far as what he can do offensively, and what he can bring to the table.
Yeah, listen, I think that he can be able to provide the Knicks buckets when they need it without having to settle for a 3-point shot.
Yeah.
I think DeMar is very confident in his abilities and what he can do offensively. And when it comes down to we need another option where the defense might think, oh, it's going to go to Randall or oh, it's going to go to Brunson, the ball can go to DeMar and DeMar could be able to provide pivotal scoring that the Knicks team will need as another option because we need someone else besides Randall and Brunson who can also be able to put that ball in if we need to, or if they kick it out to him, we know he's going to either go to work and find his way to the basket or, he can give you the shot that you need. And I think that, his stats still prove that he's possible for any team to want to take him on in the league. You know what I mean? So I like DeMar. I like him better than Zach LaVine coming here, who's straight
Oh,
up injury prone. So
don't even mention Zach LaVine.
he was at one point in the talks when they were talking about trade talks and who to bring here.
Yeah, I
Uh,
know.
and I wasn't high on Zach LaVine. I was more of like, no, I would look at DeMar DeRozan. But I know you mentioned earlier Chicago, they're not really trying to give him up, DeMar.
Yeah,
So,
no. Nope.
yeah, so, that sucks. But yeah, we still got to get to some more 5 big center positions that we need to talk about. Is there any other players you want to bring up that I didn't have on the slide?
No, I know there was a few people that, have just some mention in the chat. There was like Sadiq Bey. He's another Villanova guy. He's young, 25. small forward. He's worth definitely a mention. Although he's out, I think he had like surgery this past year. This I think March, yeah, March this past March. But he's definitely worth taking a look at. Um, his average is 13.7. 6'7". So he's a small forward. I think he's definitely worth taking a look at. And there's a few people that have some say so in the chat about who they look at. Um, uh, no, that's about it that I could think. Marcus Morris, I think senior. I think he's with Cleveland. No, this Cleveland just signed him like to a 10-day contract. This past run that they made. He's up there up in age. He's 34, um, 6'8". He has experience as well. Um, he's definitely worth taking a look at.
Yeah. There's a few guys who I still have to add to our part three list of guys who I wanted to add to this list, but I didn't get to add them. Like another guy I had thought about was Contavious Caldwell Pope from Denver. His season stats was at 10 points per game, a little over 2 rebounds, a little over 2 assists, a steal per game. His salary range was at 15 to 20 million on a 3-year deal.
Oh, okay.
So he would be able to help out on the backcourt. And I think that would be a low risk option for the Knicks. Like if they can't get any bigger name free agents, they can possibly look at somebody like him.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
I know he wouldn't be like the Knicks' top priority in free agency, but I think that his perimeter defense, his ability to disrupt passing lanes, those are like the little things that he can do to help out this team.
Yeah.
Malik Monk from Sacramento, his season stats was at 15 points per game, basically 3 rebounds per game, 5 assists. Steals and blocks was like at 0.6, 0.5. But his salary range is at 15 to 17 million on a 4-year deal. But I think with him, he offers scoring and his versatility in the backcourt as well. He can contribute as a scorer and a playmaker for this Knicks team to give them at least 15 plus points per game. So he can be a viable option for this Knicks lineup or come off the bench and be a 6th man, 7th man off the bench, and he can help them out and fill up a spot for this Knicks team. So he was another guy who I have brought up and thought about that can be a possible option for this Knicks team.
Oh, and Tyus Jones, remember?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, from Washington, from the Wizards. Yeah, he's definitely an option point guard. His name was thrown out there, this past season. So that's definitely worth a look at and a mention as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's quite a few guys out there, just the Knicks just have to just Leon Rose has done great so thus far. Like you said, he's still in the what's that, the rebuilding phase. So
Yeah.
there's some guys that, yeah, because like I said, we mentioned in the last one, they know the need what the Knicks need as far as to get them over that hump, and they know what's their greatest need and the position that needs to be filled. And let's just hope that they definitely move smart and move with intention.
Yeah. I think that's the key. This Knicks team need um, definitely a backup power forward to Randall, like a strong wing who could score. Definitely a backup point guard to Brunson. And I think that the whole 5 center position is still up in the air. because we don't know what they're doing, if they're going to be able to keep Hartenstein. And, I think the two guys for sure that I'm confident that are not going to be on the Knicks is Bogdanovich and Burks. I'm still not sure about Precious Achua because I haven't really heard his name come up in the mix. So, I think it's a lot of like watching and waiting and see what happens. We're still fresh off the season. The NBA season hasn't finished yet. So once that happens, we'll start to see some more action for sure. But, for now, we'll keep monitoring. And, I think, like you said, we know they know what needs to be addressed on this team, and I believe this Knicks front office is going to make it happen.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So, but yeah, we are gonna get out of here because we do want to watch the New York Liberty play. They're playing Chicago tonight. They're down 32-40 right now, in the second quarter. So this seems to be a good matchup, a good challenge for this Liberty team as they got embarrassed by Chicago in their first preseason game against Chicago. So, I want to see what's going on. Chicago has Marine Mabry, who I like Marine Mabry. I like her game. Um, she's just real smooth with it, real slick and sly with it. She's actually leading them in scoring, leading Chicago in scoring. She's at 12 points. Angel Reese got 5 points, 4 rebounds. The Liberty's leading by Sabrina UNESCO with 10 points. So yeah, we need other players on the Liberty to get on that scoreboard. But Nigel Laney just scored her first basket at 3 because I checked it 2 minutes ago. She didn't have anything, and Jonquel Jones don't even have a point yet. So that's got to change. The Sabali sister, she has 6 points. Actually surprised, but yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll be tuned into that game. The Liberty do play again on Saturday at 1 against Minnesota. And then they'll play against a Wednesday. So we'll be tuned into that. And then we'll actually be back on Saturday to have a part 3 of our Knicks off-season guide, trade draft picks. So I'll have another list ready for you guys on Saturday. And yeah, as you always say, let's go Knicks, let's go New York Liberty. And we'll see you guys on Saturday. And shout out to the chat. Also, those on a replay game, thanks for joining us and tuning in. We will have a variety of players and the not so obvious ones who are in the league added to a list. The slides take time. Shout out to Steph because I see what you go through coordinating your slides. They do take time, but I know that people appreciate it because I appreciate a good visual while I'm watching a podcast and they're talking about players. So it's nice to have a visual of both. So yeah, I actually don't mind doing the slides because they just look good. They look appealing to the eye. So shout out to everybody in the chat for joining us. We will see you guys. Join us on Saturday mornings. If you guys are driving or you just waking up, catch us. We start at 10:30. Get your lemon water, your alkaline water, your coffee, your tea. Join us before you start your day or while you're getting ready to start your day. Check us out on Saturday mornings. And salute to everybody, and we'll see you all then. Peace.
Ace. Peace, peace.